Welcome to the Mind Games podcast. Today, we have the owner-operator of Power Golf Australia. Throughout his career, he has worked in some of the biggest name sports businesses in the world and is now building his own. This is a story of adversity, perseverance, and determination. Rick Burke, enjoy. Alrighty, Rick Burke, mate, welcome to the Mind Games podcast. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me.
Mate, very grateful you jumping aboard. Obviously, you are the owner-operator of Power Golf, but we've actually known each other quite a long time, probably about 15 or so years we worked out. Back in the day when you were, we'll get into it, but working at the Athlete's Foot as the head of merch, and my parents, as the audience know, my parents own an Athlete's Foot store. So we kind of met at a few conferences, and as I was coming through, and always had a bit of fun. After hours, especially.
I think I met you with a beer in hand.
Yeah, definitely. No
I probably
doubt.
had one as well.
No doubt. Mate, I want to chat a little bit about your story. Like, obviously, you're now owner operator of Power Golf, but you've worked in quite a number of roles in your career, and it's quite an interesting and cool career, as we sort of discussed a little bit off camera. Let's get a little bit into the details. So you went overseas to play baseball?
Yeah, I did. So when I was a kid, I was from Melbourne, born in Dandenong Hospital. We moved to the US and I went to high school and got into baseball, came back.
Where in the US were you?
San Diego.
Yeah, okay.
And then bad stuff happened, as it does over in the US, but my old man's business went bust. So we moved to Brisbane because of the unemployment rate was pretty low there. And I continued playing baseball. And from there, I probably thought I was better than I was. I ended up in some rep sides, and then right before the Sydney Olympics, ended up on a team on the Gold Coast that had like 6 Aussie rep players on it, so it made me look and feel better, and then that was it. But I wanted to go play overseas. I wasn't good enough. I was too small. I knew I wasn't, but there was ways to play in places like Europe, and that's how I ended up in the UK.
Yeah, cool. So, and then what, were you about 18 then? How old were you then?
So no, I actually I finished high school and I went to go into trade. I went from the US into Brisbane, and I was in Rochedale on the border of Logan. After year 10, half the guys leave to go do trades, and I sort of got jealous by the time I finished high school. At the time, uni didn't feel like it was a pathway, so I started sheet metal working. Lasted 2 weeks, couldn't handle the early mornings, couldn't handle the graft, and bailed out.
I'm surprised you lasted that long. It sounds awful.
Yeah, no, yeah. It was bad. So ended up in a cozy office job, and I was supporting assistant buyers, basically just printing and running reports and all that sort of stuff. And then from there, when I was about 20, a few of my mates were going over to play baseball in the UK, and I joined them.
Okay. Yeah, cool. So, and when you got that little bit of a taste of like that buying role, did you sort of figure out that's kind of what I wanted to do, or you had no idea?
I really enjoyed it, but I was working at Mather's in the women's, the ladies' casual sort of category.
Would have suited you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so for me, I loved the job, and I felt I was pretty good at it, and they wanted me to progress, but I just didn't feel like I fit in for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So
was it? Can you tell us a story about? You told me a little bit off camera around you knowing every single article.
Yeah. So this is something that has followed me since I was a kid. I've always been a bit of a clown, and unless you hire me or work with me on a day-to-day basis, you're going to think that I'm just sort of messing about most of the time. And so the head of merch called me out on it one day, and I was sort of sitting behind my computer, and there was a wall full of ladies' casual shoes with different varying heel heights and vamps and all that sort of stuff. And she asked me to name them as she pointed them, and I was able to name 100% of what she showed me because I knew my stuff. And she was quite impressed, but at the same time, I sort of died a little bit inside because I'm thinking, what am I doing? You're doing this too well, and if you continue on with like this, you're never going to break out.
Yeah. Nah, cool. So, and then obviously, as you mentioned, you went to the UK, and there was a little bit of adversity here. So let's delve a little bit deeper into that.
Yep. So I went to the UK on a working holiday visa, started playing baseball. Actual baseball highlight was we were playing for the Windsor Bears, myself and a couple of guys from Brisbane. And they have like a FA Cup style tournament that lasts for 4 months, gets down to the Final Four, and we ended up making the Final Four and winning the Final Four. So for me, at that point, I just knew it was really hard in the UK to play baseball, get around on trains, get to all these places and all that sort of stuff. But
Was there any cash in it or no?
there was a little bit. So there was actually a bit of cash. We would be offered to play against the US military. Like after 9/11,
right.
there was sort of like a push for us to go to US Navy and Air Force bases and play against their local teams. So it was actually the most people I ever played in front of. But that would involve going into their base, hanging out with them, and then going out with them. And that's where I met a girl from Leeds. I was up in the Harrogate Air Force Base.
I lived in Harrogate.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I played against the Harrogate Air Force Base.
Yeah, okay.
And had a night out in Leeds, met this girl. This is before I even had a phone, so connected on email, and then
right.
we ended up seeing each other. At the time, I was working in a pub in Virginia Water and was loving that. So I was front of house.
Wait, so how do you talk on, you have a landline?
I have a landline. I got a phone because of...
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I ended up getting a phone because of that, just so I could text.
Yeah.
It was going to be too hard. It was internet cafes at the time.
Yeah.
Like at the pub, you couldn't use the internet until the pub closed, and that doesn't close till midnight.
Yeah,
so,
wow.
So yeah, it was a bit of a nightmare. But I was really loving the pub. I was loving being front of house. I was a bit of a shy kid. Like I love baseball, and that sort of gave me an avenue to express myself. But outside of that, I was pretty shy. And... So yeah, I saw out that working visa, went back home, and sort of 2 months later get a phone call from my ex saying that she was pregnant. So I went back over. The pub hired me sort of cash in hand, and we decided that we were going to have the baby over in the UK and go from there. And 8 months into that journey, found out that the kid actually wasn't mine. Life gets turned upside down, but in a good way, because I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And so I think the hardest part was working at the pub, because everyone, I'm front of house, and every Friday, Saturday, Sunday night, you got the same guys in, and everyone's asking, oh, when's the kid due? And that was it. But it gave me a good time to reflect. And I used to work sort of the late shift at the pub, and I met Sam Torrance, who was, I always thought he was the club captain of Wentworth. In Virginia Water, because that's where I was working. But he was an ambassador, and I think Ernie Els had taken over the club captaincy for Wentworth. And just through a misunderstanding, he asked me for a single malt whiskey. I didn't know what one was. And when I tried to give him a blended Grey Goose, he ripped into me. And when I told him I had no idea, we got chatting, and that was it. He offered me a job as a caddy at Wentworth, and I really enjoyed that.
And then you had no idea how to read greens, but you tried to give advice.
I did, yeah. It's like it was one of those things that was sort of more for the corporate days, and there is definitely a hierarchy when it comes to caddies.
Yeah.
And I was the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, okay.
Like it was, if it was a slow ladies' day, nothing that, like I'm in golf now. There's nothing wrong with ladies' days or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it's you would just get given the last sort of bag on the thing. But it was great because it was outside. I was working in pubs, but it was outside. An English summer is amazing, and you make really good tips. So I loved it. Yeah,
cool. It's interesting how things come a little bit full circle too now, like working in the golf industry. I just want to kind of delve a little bit into, talk us through that roller coaster of emotions. So you've kind of separated from her. You've moved back to Australia. I'm guessing you were looking for a career in that 2 months.
So actually I wasn't. I was going to stay in the UK as long as I possibly could.
Okay.
So I made the decision. I'm already illegal. And I found that there was a loophole where if you bought into a business, there's a potential to stay. So I was going to buy into the pub.
Okay.
But and that was to keep me there because I really liked it. But like now where pub culture's gone now and all of this, like I think less than 2% of the pubs were privately owned. So we're only buying a business, not the building, and it was a lease. So it was a bit risky. And then so I made the decision. Well, actually, my old man and my 3 brothers came and said, look, it's time to come back. And so I came back and landed a job with Amart All Sports up in Brisbane as an assistant buyer, and absolutely loved it. And that was sort of my first pivot into the career that I'm in now. Yeah,
okay. So you kind of gone back on that little bit of experience you had previously, and then wanted to figure out that's kind of the direction you wanted to take your career.
Yeah.
But you were kind of interested in sport through your history in baseball and golf and different things.
It's just weird. I don't know if it's something that's 22, like it'd be much harder to do nowadays, but 22 years ago I could just email Amart like All Sports and say, I've got a bit of experience. I'm coming back to Brisbane. Is there a job? And they hired me. Like it's just wild.
Yeah, cool. Well, before we get into that, talk us through the biggest name you caddied for.
So it's only one big name that I've caddied for. Well, actually, the head of McLaren at the time was one, but it was the World Match Play, and Tiger Woods was coming to town, and so so when they do the Pro-Am event, they use local caddies. So I knew that I was going to get someone, and you hope that you get a pro and not an amateur. And fortunately, I got a pro, but it was a bit of a stitch up. So I got Colin Montgomery, which I was excited for because I was playing Tiger Woods.
He's a big friend of the show, Colin Montgomery. He listens.
So, well, he'll be able to verify this.
Yeah.
So I remember he was one of the early characters in Tiger Woods on PlayStation or something. I think it was Justin Rose, and then you unlock Colin Montgomery. And so I was caddying for Colin, and I was so I rock up to the first tee. I've got my apron on, and I've gone like, all right, Colin. So the first hole, and before I could get anywhere, he's just gone, just give me the driver, son. and it didn't get any better from that. So I'm not sure if he didn't like Aussies, didn't like caddies, or just didn't like golf.
Just a cranky man.
But he was a cranky man, and he tore shreds through the two amateurs that we had as well. It was raining on the day, and that was probably the hardest bag I had to carry.
Far out. Torture. But a good story. Okay, so you ended up at Amart.
Yep.
Then you were there for a little bit, and then another little bit of adversity came your way. Talk us through that.
So enjoying Amart, I get promoted like within 6 months to being a buyer. Like a big part of what I went through in the UK was that when I came back, I got back about 25. I think I was 25, 26. And I made a decision that I was going to throw everything into my career and try to play a bit of catch up, because I was 26. I had no degree, no experience that I could really use in Australia. So I was working extremely hard, and that led to a promotion. And again, like that's something that 22 years ago, you work hard, you get a promotion. It's not so much the case nowadays, I don't think, with how competitive everything is. And so I was flying. I was having a great time. And then we all get pulled into a room, like the entire Amart office, and we're told that Amart had been acquired by Archer Capital, who had also acquired Rebel Sport.
So did you have any inkling this was happening?
Yeah, we did. So Amart All Sports acquired Rowan Jarman. So I was part of sort of rebranding Rowan Jarman out in South Australia and WA. And sort of big learning that I took from the leadership was don't rebrand before people know who you are. So Amart had stars and stripes in their logo. So South Australia and WA thought that they were being taken over by Americans and sort of boycott what was happening. And that led to the stars and stripes being removed from the logo.
Yeah.
And so we had an inkling that things were happening, but we didn't have an inkling that we'd all been pulled into a room and told that we're all being made redundant. And so my world sort of came crashing down like within seconds, and I was thinking, like, what am I going to do? My first response was go back to the pub and work illegally, but I think I probably had a 3-year ban at the time with overstaying.
Yeah, okay.
And so
you literally went in the room with thinking, I'm going to go back to back to UK.
That was my first, I think this was the place that I'd worked. I'd spent like 4 years there, and for me, it did feel like home at the time. Okay. Despite what I went through, and that's because of the people. Like the same owners became really close with the locals, all that sort of stuff. So, so I thought like the world's come crashing down again. So we go to exit, and 10 of us get pulled into another room, and
so the rest of them just get seized? Yeah,
they're just gone. So it's take your stuff, like whatever we're like, and it's leave the premises now type of situation.
Wow.
And so we get pulled into another room, and there's 10 of us, and it's all like buyers and assistant buyers. And then one by one we get taken into a room with Carl Bonham, and I can't remember who he was with, but Carl Bonham was the GM of Rebel at the time. Really imposing figure, like just no nonsense, pretty intimidating. And I'm sitting across from him, and he's got a piece of paper. He slides it over the desk, and he says, "This is the contract. We want you to come to Rebel. You sign now, or we take it off the table." So it was a pretty easy decision to make, and that led me to relocating to Sydney.
Yeah, okay. So you've always been pretty mobile. What do you think that's about? Like, is it just something that you sort of picked up growing up, or? Yeah.
So like when I was a kid, I was born in Dandenong. I went to 6 different primary schools.
Yeah,
went to the US, and then when I went to Brisbane, we landed in, because we were doing it tough with the old man's business going bust. So we were living in a pretty small house, and I went to an agricultural school, even though it was on the border of Logan and Brisbane. And we moved into Logan. My brother, I've got 3 younger brothers. They ended up in different schools, but I just refused to change high school.
Okay.
So that was my only time where I sort of had a bit of continuity. And I think that sort of led to always feeling, I guess, not safe, like always feeling like there's something coming down the line. And so I've always been pretty mobile. We've moved a lot. I haven't really had much stuff. And so for me, it wasn't a hard decision.
Yeah, okay. It's weird too because well, not weird, but it's interesting. I reckon you probably, in a weird way, sort of think like it's easy to just make new mates.
Yeah.
Like it's a skill that like not everyone obviously has, or does naturally. But like I think in that way, like it probably teaches you something that you don't realise. Like,
yeah, I've entered a lot of schools and like midterm and all that sort of stuff, and I just realised you've either got to be good at sport or you got to be funny. Yeah. And I tried both, so it just failed miserably at both. So yeah, that was it. And the sport's changed. Like you know, in Victoria, you're playing Aussie rules, and then you move to Queensland, and all of a sudden I'm a second rower playing rugby league, and I could say like I've hit home runs, I've scored 3-pointers, but I've never scored a try.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we got lit. So I think I was 65 kilos playing second row against like Woodridge and Logan City.
Yeah,
so I was no chance. Yeah.
That's funny. So moved to Sydney. Where'd you move to?
So Kerry Rickards, who was part of Adidas, she moved to Amart just before we relocated. So I moved in with her. And we moved to Newtown. So absolutely loved it. Good pub culture. I didn't realise that there was a pub culture like it in Sydney, and I sort of put it back to the UK. So it's sort of...
Yeah, I was about to say that's probably the most similar to the UK that you're probably going to find in Sydney.
So I instantly sort of felt at home in Sydney, and which was great. And I really enjoyed my time at Rebel. And then, actually when I first started at Rebel, I was the only buyer from Amart that took another buyer's job, and that person got sort of demoted and was put as an assistant buyer.
Yeah, right.
So this was my first sort of experience into, I'd say, a bit of imposter syndrome. Is like, why has he been made redundant when his portfolio is this, and he's got the relationships? And
so is that external, or are you thinking that yourself? I'm
thinking that, and I voiced it to Seaton Kidd, who was the sort of the head buyer at the time. And he just said, no, mate, we hired you. We didn't so you need to sort of own it. And that gave me a bit of confidence. And then I started getting moved around the categories within Rebel for good reasons, but also at the same time, I hadn't seen a buy through.
Oh, okay.
So I'd do the buy, I'd do all the prep, it'd be done. And then Seaton would say to me, there's another category we need you in. And I'm thinking, I'm getting credit for a lot of things that I haven't achieved yet. So I haven't seen a buy through. So that sort of sat in the back of my mind. And then I was approached by a recruiter who was very cagey, I thought. And he said, I know people in the office. I can't come and see you. I can't come and see you there. Where can I meet you? And I told him Newtown. And between the time that he said that he was going to meet me until I saw him at Newtown, a few people sort of got in my ear and sort of said, nah, that can't be real. Someone's stitching you up.
Okay.
So I didn't take it seriously. I'd had a big night the night before. I met him and I was a bit hungover. Turns out to be real. He called me out on being hungover and he said, you can come see me this week. The role's real, and it was the athlete's foot.
Oh, so he canned the meeting and said...
We had breakfast, so he didn't walk out.
Okay.
But he canned the meeting and said, look, fair play that you didn't think I was real because I didn't give you a lot of information at the time.
Yeah.
His name was Jeff Whitecross. He's a great recruiter.
Yeah. Did he give you any info at the meeting, or he said...
He sort of explained I had to sign something. You know what these things are like. It's a small industry, as we sit here now. Yeah. And so it was the athlete's foot role.
Yeah.
And for me, that was a big one because I'd just been a buyer for 2 years. I was having a great time, enjoyed what I was doing, still had that sort of inkling in the back of my mind that I hadn't seen a buy through. And now all of a sudden they're offering me, I'm in the running for a head of merch role, which was,
massive
2 or 3 steps up from where I was. And so...
Talk me through prepping for that interview, like the actual interview.
So it was really odd. I thought I just wasn't going to be in the running, and the panel was sort of their leadership team, including Les Elias, who I now own Power Golf with.
And who else was it? Mick Cooper, Jeff? It was
Mick Cooper, Jeff Webster, Peter Rich, and Les Elias. And so I sat in the panel, and they sort of just grilled me. It almost felt like it was like I'm on The Apprentice or something.
Yeah.
But they had a style about them that I sort of felt that I was like, it was more conversational, and I didn't think that I was in the running, so that sort of helped me relax and just go with it. And then I had 2 interviews, and at the time, my parents had split. My mum was a cab driver in Brisbane, and she called me one day and said, "Oh, I met Mr. Webster," and she was talking about Jeff Webster, and just absolutely wild coincidence, my name comes up in the back of her cab because the boys used to get the first flight out of Sydney to go to Brisbane to do all the forums.
Yeah.
And my mum used to hang out at Brisbane Airport to get the early flights in from Sydney.
You're kidding.
And so my mum's, she's a bit wild, and I've called my brother immediately and said, my mum's just cost me like 40, 50 grand in plane rides. I've got my first opportunity to jump sort of like 3 steps in my career. And at the time, and it's harsh to think that, but
yeah,
I was thinking, oh man.
You always think the worst.
You think the worst, yeah. And so.
So how is she just sort of said, oh, what do you do for work? And he goes, oh, I work with the Athlete's Foot. And you go, oh, my son's gone for a role there.
No, my name came up. So I was like, they were sitting there going like, are we going to offer Rick the role? And then they started talking, and she said, Rick Burke. She goes, and they go, yeah, and she goes, that's my son.
No way.
So I'm just, and it's happened twice. It actually happened with Trent Boosted from Adidas at the time. He came back from a meeting up in Brisbane and said the same. So
yeah, wow.
It was pretty wild. My mum was going through a tough time at the time, so it was a weird one. And I remember when Jeff Webster called me and said that we're going to offer you the role. I said, I heard you met my mum. And he said, yeah, we did. He goes, well, we're not hiring your mum. And I still don't know what that means. It sat with me, and I'll have to send him this. But
he'll be watching. He loves this show.
I still don't know what that means. But that then was a massive pivot. And you talk about imposter syndrome. That's me walking into a very mature business with 90+ franchise owners that I was the third buyer at the history at that time, and there was a lot of pressure riding on it for me, and I wasn't sure if I was ready. Big time.
And for context as well, I can speak from looking at Rick working from the other side in that role. To roll, it's probably very thankless in a lot of ways. Like, you're fighting for margin, you're fighting for a number of different things, different segmentation to different product, all these sorts of things. It was probably a little bit different back then, but you're also, as you sort of said, there's 90-odd franchisees who all think they know better than you, who all probably in a way know their own franchise better than what you actually do, because you're looking at it holistically as a business. And for example, with the Athlete's Foot, like, what's going to sell in Cairns is going to be different to what sells in Sydney City. So it's a very like dealing with 2 different owners, sort of trying to guide them into what they should purchase and buy for their own, and how to spend their money to then try and make money. It's a very like, I know you definitely would have copped it a fair bit.
Yeah, it was hard, and footwear was the only category I didn't buy at Rebel.
Oh,
so
okay.
Going through all the other categories, so I came in like cold.
Wow.
And footwear at Rebel was obviously a beast, and so I came in and didn't know a lot about the technology, and that, I'd say, in the first 6 months where people would just try and catch me out on that.
Yeah, right.
You don't know the product, how can you do this job type of thing. And I'd say the first 12 months were probably the hardest, because, as you know, the conferences that they go for 5 days, heavily social. And then at the final day of the 5th day, I'd have to stand up there for 3.5, 4 hours with a room full of shoes, and we'd stand there and vote. And
I remember a day, actually. Can I tell a little story? And I'm almost certain I remember this right. We would have had a massive night the night before, and probably the 3 nights before that. And I'm pretty sure, like, we walked into the room on the final day when you were picking the range. You know what I'm telling you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we, like, there probably was only half the room in there. That's how hungover everyone was after the big conference night, where it's like an awards dinner sort of thing. Everyone wears suits and stuff like that. And from memory, someone sort of argued at something you said, and then you kind of went, well, no one's listening to me anyway, so you pushed the wall down. Is that what happened?
No, so
something like that.
It's close to that. So what was happening was, it was a huge night, and it was one of the bigger ones, because I think I ended up presenting at more than 15 conferences, because they would happen sort of twice a year.
Yeah.
And it was the worst one. Like, it was at Crown Casino. I think it was the early days of Crown, where it just didn't stop. There was no way to go. Like, if you go to another hotel, they cut you off at 12, and that's it. Everyone's back. But No, people were out for a long time, but still they showed up. But it was the first time I could feel that the room wasn't engaged.
Yeah, okay.
And I remember telling Robert Mills, who was the franchise business manager, I said,
He still is, I think.
Yeah, he still is. Yeah, he still is. I remember saying to him, don't go near the wall because no one's paying attention. I'm going to knock it down. And there's hundreds of shoes on that wall.
Yeah.
And so I did it. And it made a much louder noise than I thought it would. And everyone screamed. We stopped for 15 minutes. And for the rest of it, everyone was hugely engaged. And it worked. So it just, things like that, I don't know, I could try because I was in a massive room and I'm just thinking, I'm feeling the same way you guys are.
Yeah.
Don't make me stand up here for 4 hours and for you guys not to engage. So yeah, that's the true story.
Yeah. Talk me through even, because I still remember back when you are sort of presenting in those environments, just thinking the prep work that goes into that, it definitely goes unnoticed. That's to present for 4 hours in front of, whatever, a couple hundred people or whatever there was in the room, as you said, as explained earlier, you're essentially guiding them on how to spend their money. The prep work that needs to go into that, it definitely doesn't get recognized by the people sitting in the audience. How do you talk me through that piece?
Yeah, it's really hard because you don't know where the direction's going to go because it's an open mic situation. There's usually 4 mics going around the room as well, which was a nightmare. It was like Jerry Springer or Ricky Lake. It was tough. And so whatever I could prepare, it could get just derailed to the side. So what I did is I would work back to, because I was fortunate that there wasn't a lot that I had to enforce on the franchise owners. I would negotiate the terms, the range assortment, but they ultimately made their own buying decisions. So the things that we had around national campaigns and all of that, I could just focus on that. So it wasn't too bad because I could just build back from what they were committed to and the decisions that I had actually made and agreed to with our brand partners.
Can I ask, had you done much presentation work prior to this role?
No, and I still hate it.
But that's crazy. You're doing 4-hour presentations on, as you said, just telling people how to spend their money in front of hundreds of people with no experience.
Yeah, I want to throw up before everyone, and that wasn't from the alcohol. It was from just sheer nerves, and I never got used to it.
Yeah, okay.
And what I would do is, as I develop relationships with the franchise owners, and most of my best friends now have come from the franchise group and brand partners during that period of my career. I would talk to 5 or 6 key owners, have them sit in different parts of the crowd, and if I was struggling, they would sort of throw me a bone. Get it back on track, because there was a few people that would always derail it.
Yeah,
it's the same people, and they probably
absolutely
had the smaller stores in the most remote areas that were very specific just to them.
That was a very specific comment, Rick, but yes.
So that would help. So that sort of gave me a bit of, Robert Mills from a store support center point of view, and that would help, and then a few key franchise owners.
Yeah. Was towards the end of your time, were they starting to move towards more of a corporate business?
Yeah, that started, and that's sort of when I noticed that things were starting to change.
Yeah.
And this was pre-Accent Group taking over, where I then go through a really tough point in my career again.
Yeah. So, sorry, when you left TAF, was Mick Cooper still the GM? Or he left? Okay.
Yeah. But that was probably transitioning. I think he was phasing himself out.
Yeah.
And so what had happened was there was more franchise stores coming on, and we didn't really have a lot of planning tools and all of that. And if I go back to Mathers, when I can name all the heel heights and all that sort of stuff, Mick Cooper asked me, and Michael Hershowitz at the time, who was the director of finance, asked me our stock levels within those corporate stores, and I couldn't answer it. So, and that was the first one where I'm like, okay, I've been exposed a bit here, because my role had been predominantly working on the franchise side.
Yeah.
And we put a lot of faith in the managers of the stores in the corporate environment just to order as they needed to service that customer.
So are you obviously it's a very broad role, but are you if you see a store's ordered way too much, let's just say Nike for context, there wasn't much Nike at the time, but if they've ordered way too much Nike, are you pulling them back, or?
We didn't have access to the info. That was the issue.
Okay.
So it wasn't easy to run a report. It was before they converted to the system that they're currently on now.
Yeah, I think it's updated again, actually.
It has. Yeah. So I didn't have the access, and so it was, for me, it was a reason for the guys, it was an excuse. So I sort of started to feel that I was falling out of favour, and I felt that for some time. And then Accent Group then came in, and they had Hype, Platypus, the sneaker boom was well and truly flying, and they took over RCG. And a big part of what they wanted to do was they looked at the athlete's foot model and said, it's not cool enough. You guys are missing the sneaker boom. And, Rick, what are you doing about it? And my response is that we're performance. We're in a heavily segmented market, and it's unlikely that we're going to get access to these type of products.
Which, for context, so my parents have owned a store for 28 years, I think, maybe 29, 30. And I think that's still the heritage of TAF, from my point of view anyway.
It is,
yeah, it's still performance. It's still, if they went in there and started selling, some of the fashion product that you see in a Foot Locker, for example, I think it's
and this wouldn't work. This is a key learning in my career, because despite having issues with the systems and the corporate store side, I still felt that I was doing a really good job, and I still felt that I had the backing of the business.
Yeah.
And so for me, I felt that I had that, not authority, I just felt I had the experience to be able to push back and say, hey, this isn't going to happen. And that backfired in the big way, where they sort of said, well, if you can't get us that segmentation, we're going to bring someone in. And they brought someone in from Foot Locker Europe to take on my role. And
can I ask, before you get into that, so did you fully understand segmentation? Because you come from Amart, which, for context, probably would get a lot of the factory outlet product from brands. Moved into Rebel, which probably has a lot more pull in that regard. Then transition into TAF, which is strictly performance. So, or at the time was strictly performance. So, how did you understand that? Is it just learning on the run?
Learning on the run. But what happened, what was a really good learning, was that they kept the Amart and Rebel businesses separate, but you would buy for both. So as a buyer, I'd buy for Amart and for Rebel for the same category. And so I would be working with brands, and they'd be saying, we don't want that in Amart, we want that in Rebel. These can go to both. And so I was dealing with segmentation there. So it would be really difficult, because you would know that you're sort of stitching up Amart, but you also knew that everyone loved Rebel. So if you want to make your job easy, throw it in Rebel. If you want to make your job hard, push back on on that sort of side. So that was my first sort of exposure to that. And then with Athlete's Foot, it was fine, because it was performance-led retailer, and the brands wanted to work with us.
Yeah.
So we just got what we were after.
Okay.
It wasn't until the sneaker boom sort of started to come in, where franchise owners were like, hey, why can't we get access to this? We're seeing, sneakers that could technically loosely be put on an Athlete's Foot shelf.
Yeah.
And Nike Free probably opened up that door a bit, where it was sort of less performance-led.
We can sell this, yeah.
And so I had a bit of experience on it, and that's where, when Hype and Platy came in, and they're like, Ricky, doing a terrible job, I was just like, well, it doesn't matter. We're not going to get the segmentation anyway.
Yeah.
So they pulled the trigger and said, well, we'll get someone that we think can. And
Okay. And then, so what did you call it earlier? A separation agreement?
Yeah, separation agreement.
Okay. So this is your second separation agreement?
Yeah. So, so for the Rebel, I left, which was good.
No, the Amart one was.
The Amart, yeah. The Amart one was, separation. Yeah. So this was a separation agreement where we like you, but you're gone. And so there was incentives actually for me not to go to Rebel. So if I didn't go to Rebel for 12 months, there was incentives. And so they value me to an extent, but at the same time, I wasn't fit for purpose or what they were trying to achieve.
So was there opportunity, I don't even know what you can say here, because a lot of them are gone anyway, but opportunity to evolve the role or evolve your...
Well, I spent probably 2 months with Pete, who took over the role, and he actually proposed that we both take it on. And I think it was because he probably wasn't ready for the role.
Yeah.
And I think he liked the support of me being there, which is wild, because he was taking my position. And so it was a really tough spot to be in. And I remember that the Athlete's Foot still wanted me to present at conference, and this is 2 months after I'd been sort of essentially let go. Yeah. Which was it's a tough one. So I'm sort of...
I remember that conference as well.
Yeah. And so, and at this point, it was funny. I was at my desk, and one of the guys from finance was working with me on the corporate store sort of budgets, and an email come up from a recruiter at the Iconic who happened to be Patrick Schmidt, who was the CEO at the time. It was his fiance, and she said she wanted to reach out to talk about a role within the Iconic. And I sort of saw it, and at the time, the Iconic were seen as sort of the anti sort of sport retailer at the time because of like online retail, cheaper getting it in from overseas, and the price parity was a bit of an issue, and it took a while for that to sort of settle from a global pricing point of view. And I remember thinking, I said, oh no, I won't do that. And the person who was in finance said, oh mate, I think you should, because he knew what was coming for me down the line, which was there's no role.
Yeah, okay.
And that's how the opening with the Iconic came. Had he not been in the room, I might have dismissed it and might have missed that opportunity.
It's very like, because what year was that? 2017, 16?
It was 2006, 2007. Oh no, sorry. No, 2010. Yeah, no, you're right. 2016. Sorry.
16, yeah.
2016.
2016. So like online shopping was a thing, but it was coming quick.
Well, and
Right.
I knew from Asics and Brooks and like a lot of these big brands for the athlete's foot that they said, we're not going to supply the Iconic because they're parallel importing and they don't have a physical bricks and mortar.
Yeah,
so for me,
right.
moving into the Iconic felt like a dangerous career move.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So in terms of taking on, also talk us through that actually. There's a whole nother story around this. So talk us through going into the first interview.
So I met
the trip prior.
Yeah, the trip. So I had an interview lined up with the Iconic, and it was with Adam Jacobs, one of the co-founders, Patrick Schmidt, and Marilla. And I was going to Hood to Coast. So this was, I think, for the fourth year in a row. Nike used to take a team from the athlete's foot every 5 years to go over to Portland to run this big relay. You start there's sort of 12 of you start on a snowy mountain, you finish on a warm beach, sort of 36 hours later, and you don't sleep, and it's amazing. Like
Yeah,
it's
right.
1,200 teams, and
How far do you go?
each person goes anywhere between 30 and 50 Ks.
Okay.
Well, you do it with 12. We decided to, someone actually made a connection and hooked up with one of the girls from Nike, and then she offered us a ticket for every year after that. So we would take a team over.
I reckon I'd probably guess who that was, but yeah, keep going.
So we would go and we would run with a team of 8 because we couldn't get vans big enough because they were all booked out. And so we would run with a team of 8. We loved it.
Yeah.
But this last year, I just found that I couldn't keep up with the boys as far as having drinks and the social part of it. And then with the running, I was just absolutely cooked. And we would drive to sort of get to the next checkpoints. And I actually passed out while we were driving and went through a red light, and I didn't know what was going on. And I said to the boys, someone's going to need to take one of my legs, because you'd have 3 to 5 legs. You might start at 8 in the morning, the next one might be 11, but you'd have these breaks. And I just kept saying, guys, something's wrong. But because we were a team of 8, no one wanted to do it. So I ended up getting it done. And
So are they giving you stick, like harden up kind of thing?
I've got a video where I said,
okay.
guys, I think I'm dying here. And then they said, no one's ever given up a leg on Hood to Coast. So
Oh, fuck. Okay.
yeah, I did a GoPro thing. So I get back to Australia. I go into the Iconic interview the day I get back from the US. So I was already like, you're jet lagged and all this sort of stuff. And
So talk us through that prep. Like, are you going into a role that you're a little bit uncertain of, but you're also like you don't have a current role. Like you're leaving TAF at that time.
I was if I backtrack to sort of bring the continuity, I knew what the role was. I was still at the Athlete's Foot at the time. So I'd gone to Hood to Coast, but I was coming back, and that's where the conference thing was still in a play.
Okay.
And I found out that the role at the Iconic was to relaunch sport and be the head of sport. So I'd gone in, and I was interested because I knew that I was done for, and I didn't want them to know that I'd been fired, because I thought that might hurt my chances.
Yeah.
And why are they firing this guy?
Well, not only that, it's probably a strong negotiation point if they don't think you're unemployed.
Yeah, that's
you might
true.
get
That's a good point.
a little bit extra Bunsen out of it. But yeah, sorry, go on.
So I'm in the meeting, and it was in the Mary Street office. It was very startup, so it was like bar stools on a high table, and
Right.
I was going through the interview, and because I was really concentrating and focusing, I just started feeling like I started to get hot. And I just thought it's the same as me presenting when I'm up on stage. I'm nervous, and I haven't done this for a while. And then I started to see sort of dots, and I passed out. So I fell off the chair, ended up on the ground, and came to, and I just thought it was because I said, "Hey, I'm severely jet lagged. I've travelled a long way," and I thought I blew it. But I knew something was wrong, so I left. I tried to salvage whatever I could of that interview, and then I left and went to the and then went to the docs. I actually went to the hospital and got dismissed for having indigestion. So because they said, "What have you just eaten recently?" And I said Indian food, so I probably shouldn't do that. If I had my time over, I wouldn't have said that. It sent it on a different path. But
so in terms of prepping for that interview, like the mentally getting yourself ready to go, are you just going in there cold? Or are you prepping on the plane? Like how did that sort of go?
I went in cold because I'd gone through, because I thought they were pitching to me.
Oh, okay.
And I learned the hard way in the first 6 months when I did go to the Iconic that they were pitching to me. So I felt I was in the driver's seat, even though I needed this to land.
Yeah, okay.
And I wasn't sure. And I still was, because a lot of my friendship circle was the brand side, and I just knew that there was a stigma to the Iconic at the time. So I was torn. I was torn. Same as when I went with the Athlete's Foot role. I was torn of whether or not I wanted it or not. So I just knew if I just did my best and they offered it to me, then I'll play that by ear as it comes.
Yeah, okay. So go to the docs, go to the hospital, they send you over indigestion, then what happens?
Long story, but I, without a referral, because I tried to get a referral for an endoscopy because I thought there was something wrong with my stomach. I went to Bondi endoscopy, made an appointment, and then they asked me where my referral was, and I said I left it at home. They pushed me more, and then I said I didn't have one, and they said, well, you can't get one, and I said I'm not leaving unless I get one. Things got a bit tense, and then Dr. Michael Hing came down and said, if you wait long enough, I'll get you a referral and we'll do it. And then that then led to him saying, yep, there's something wrong, and that led to having non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And initially it was diagnosed sort of stage 3, stage 4, and then a week later told stage 1 and I'm going to beat it. So
okay,
yeah, so it was a week of this is like life changing to you'll be fine.
Yeah, okay. So question to that, are you just parking work then, or how did?
No, so I was still working at the Athlete's Foot, and I was waiting on the role for the Iconic to come through, and the Iconic came through like a week after I found out I had cancer, and offered me a contract. I went in to meet with Patrick, Adam, and Marilla, and I just said, look, this is what's going on. I'm going to be going through chemo for the next 5 months. I'm happy to park this until I get back. And Patrick turned around straight away and just said, no, you're with us now, so we'll back you all the way through. You take as much time as you need, and you be here as much as you need. And this is before work from home times. Like, you know, the notion of starting a new job and not being in office 5 days was a daunting one. So for me, that immediately locked me into the Iconic, and I'm like, these are the people I want to work with.
Okay.
And then I went back to the Athlete's Foot, and there was incentives for me to stay sort of 3 months here, 3 months there, and I just said I'm exiting. And sort of, I think I can't remember if and you might be able to tell me, I can't remember if I said it or not that I was going through the health issue, or if I just exited. So,
I didn't know. But I was at a brand by then.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, I don't know.
Mizuno?
Yeah.
So I made a decision to shave my head. It was actually perfect timing because I made a decision to shave my head. No one knew me in the Iconic, and just go in as the bald guy. And so no one knew what I was going through at the time. So the leadership team knew, but I made a decision not to tell my team what I was going through.
So how many people were you managing at the end when you were at TAF?
It was a small team because we had I was managing one person, which was Shannon Titcombe.
Yeah. And then, but then you go to the Iconic, and how big's your team?
So I had a team of 6, and I was nervous going in because it was the full buying, planning function rolled into one, and it was full ownership of the P&L that was against the sport team. And so at the time, the sport business was 1.6 million. There were 6 people in the team, and I rocked up and I said to my boss, Marilla, who she's German, similar to Patrick, and they come with their own German style. I said, what do you want me to do today? And she said, that's on you. So there was no brief, just go in. And so the first question I asked the team was, you guys are all at the Iconic. Who here expected to be in sport, and who wants to be in sport? And no one put their hand up. So I knew this was the department that no one wanted to be in. and I knew that I was going to have a few issues. So it was a bit of a slow start.
So even not even that, like the category you're taking on there at 1.6 million, that's barely covering, or it wouldn't even cover your wage. Obviously exaggeration.
I had to move the needle. I had to turn the dial pretty quick.
Yeah.
So I started, and so Patrick and Marilla and Adam Jacobs, they expected me to hire people from Rebel, from the Athlete's Foot and all of that. And I was like, you don't, like, those people are used to negotiating with the power of the brand behind them. I said, you don't want that. And I said, and I have like really close personal relationships with these brands. If I bring in the people that they already know, we're not really achieving anything. So I started to recruit internally and try and sort of build a sort of a culture and a team that was a little bit different. And so...
Was it more understanding how you could develop the power of the Iconic as well?
Yeah, like I knew just from the numbers outside of sport that this is a real business as far as how many customers that they had, how many people were online, the conversions, all of this. And I sort of felt that it's not if, it's when. And I just hope that I can take them on this journey and be at the right place at the right time, because I feel I have been in the right place at the right time until it's not.
100%. You've landed.
Until it's not. And I've always said that the people that hire me like love what I do and they want me to execute. The people that inherit me, if they come in and there's a big change in the business, think I'm that clown from Mathers. Like, I think I'm usually in the social committee, so they, got a beer in hand. And if you don't work with me day to day, then that's again a learning for me on my own personal brand. That people think that I just don't do a lot. Yeah. And so I started building a team from internally, and we started getting some runs on the board, and just the power of the Iconic and how fast it was growing made the job pretty easy. And then it just needed a couple of brands to come on, and that happened. Adidas and Nike at the time because of the strength of Style Runner. So Style Runner probably paved the way for the Iconic, I'd say, because you had the sisters running a digital business, and they had 500,000 not YouTube, Instagram followers at the time, and they were just doing a lot in that digital space, and that opened up a lot of doors for digital retail, especially with the Iconic. So the Iconic has a lot to thank for Style Runner opening up those doors.
Yeah, okay. Then obviously you had a fair bit of learnings from Style Runner.
Yeah, I did, and so it sort of paved the way because brands, especially the global brands, were more willing to work digitally. But through that time, I think the biggest transition I had in trying to drive a business in the Iconic versus the Athlete's Foot is I had always made decisions by a committee when it came to the Athlete's Foot. We would vote at conferences, we would have state forums.
Yeah.
And generally it was 50-50, so I'd piss off 50% of the group and the other 50% would like it. And I remember going to the Iconic and saying, again, to Marilla, what is it that you want me to do? And she said, that's what we're paying you for. So this whole decision by committee was gone, and I just had to make the calls. And I had to live by those calls and own those calls. So it was a real sort of shift. And I remember early on, I had a meeting with Patrick Schmidt, the CEO. He'd come in from Germany, and we were meeting with Nike in Melbourne. And at the time, Nike was the brand. And so it was a huge deal for us to be meeting with them around supply and access to product. But I recently hung out with these guys. I've been overseas with them.
You were just on the trip.
Yeah. I know these guys well. So Patrick came in and used my hotel room to get changed. We then go to Abbotsford. We're having breakfast, and he goes, "Have you prepared a deck?" And I said, "Oh no, not really." And he's like, "What do you mean?" And I said, "I don't know. I haven't got a deck prepared." And he goes, "What's the purpose of the meeting?" And I said, "Well, we're meeting with Nike, right?" And he goes, "Well, what's the purpose?" And I couldn't answer the question. I was like, "Oh, we're just looking for access." But he was quite an intimidating guy, Patrick. And he said to me, he goes, "I'm starting to doubt my decision-making process in bringing you in if this is your approach to meeting with one of the global brands." And I'm
from my point of view in that though, your biggest thing, and still to this day, as you sort of mentioned earlier, is the relationship piece that was what you were bringing to the Iconic, right? Like, you weren't bringing a wealth of experience in building an e-com business.
No. And that's what I thought.
Yeah.
But then no, this is what we hired you to do. But Patrick was ex-consultant with Boston Consultancy. He came from a different sort of background. And we went into this meeting and like I felt uncomfortable. Everyone knew who I was. It was great. And I tried, and this is a mistake, sometimes just accept your loss. Don't try and pull together 3 slides on the fly. And I presented 3 terrible slides. And he called me on the way like to the airport. I was staying in Melbourne at the time. And I was pretty sure I was going to get fired. And this is when I knew that like my cancer and all this had no stead. So I knew, you know, my performance is my performance.
Yeah.
But what that taught me is, and he was right, and I still do it to this day, even coming on here, that, you know, I need to have, what's the purpose of the meeting? Like we have to respect everyone's time, right?
Yeah.
And so even if I have the relationships with brands for 10 plus years, if I'm going to see Raja Brooks and all that sort of stuff, I should still have the professional courtesy to prepare, have an outcome that I want in mind. You know, what's the win-win and what are we walking away agreeing on? Yeah. And that sort of really helped me, one, with my team and sort of building the team within the Iconic. I then started, you know, we were a small category within a fashion business. So trying to get activity like running or gym into an online ecosystem that has occasion, which is, it could be spring racing or weddings or something like that, was really difficult. So we had to have the best relationships with the tech teams. We had to be the ones that responded to the emails quickest internally, be the easiest to work with, the least amount of pushback, and build it that way. So every meeting that we had that purpose. And, you know, basically it scared me when Patrick was like, you know, I'm thinking that I'm the guy that's coming in. You guys have approached me. I'm the one you want. But he was ready to pull the trigger and say, you're not the right guy if this is how you're going to conduct yourself. So
was there an outcome from the meeting out of interest?
No.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. And it wasn't for a long time because you know what it's like on the sports side. Like it is a slow burn. Yeah. And
did you explain that? Or?
I did, but it's not gonna land. I remember in the interview, Patrick said, "How would you get ASICS on?" Because they were parallel importing ASICS. He goes, "How would you get ASICS on board?" And I said, "Oh, I'd try and call Alan Russell." And he said, "Well, that's not an answer. Like, what strategically would you do?" And I'd said, "I'd call Alan Russell and find out why we're not," which I know why we're not, because we don't have a bricks and mortar. And we just kept butting heads on that one. So I'm pretty sure Adam Jacobs hired me, not Patrick. But
yeah, okay.
But it was just things like that. I had to relearn how to be in business because I'd had things were done by committee. I didn't have to own a lot of the decisions. If things went well, the franchisees would throw their hands up and say it was them. If things went bad, it went my way, but I was happy. Yeah. Like I was fine with that. But now I had to own every decision.
I suppose in a way it kind of, the evolution of the sporting goods industry as well. Like I'd tell a little story on Alan Russell. So I actually, when I was like probably 19, interviewed for a role with ASICS. I actually got the role but ended up turning it down and went another direction. But so I had a first round interview with Timmy Mackay. He loves the show. He'll be watching for sure. And then the second round was with Alan Russell and Anton.
Oh, yeah.
And Alan Russell said something like, it was like a question around like if whatever, a slow mover or something like that. And I kind of, however I answered it. And he literally looked me dead in the eye. I was literally 19 or something. And he goes, "Mate, we're fucking ASICS." And I was like, whoa, okay, fair enough.
Yeah. But that's how it works.
Yeah. So like that old school mentality of things like that. Whereas like, yeah, this is definitely and there's been a lot of learnings for me in the last few years around this sort of stuff as well, in terms of a different way of thinking and that's more a different level of strategic thinking, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. So almost got the pin, but then you had a very successful couple of years there at the Iconic. So the business went from 1.2 to what, 100?
Yeah, so north of 100 mil, and that gets us to COVID. And so business was going great. The Iconic was going amazing. We get locked down.
It would have went up though in COVID, wouldn't it?
Well, that's the thing. So right before COVID, not right before, I don't know the timelines, but Patrick Schmidt, who I loved working with, taught me a lot. He took a global CEO role within the Iconic because they were part of sort of 4 other ventures around the world. And he was hiring his replacement, and that replacement was Erica from Rebel. Yeah. So you get a CEO from Australia's largest sporting goods retailer, and what do CEOs like to do? Like to bring in their own team. So I felt a bit like, okay, this is history repeating itself again, but I'll have a swing. I loved it at the Iconic. So, you know, show her what you can do type of thing. And again, like, she's now not hired me, she's inherited me. And so things are going like, well, they're going okay, but I can see some signs that that maybe we're not aligned. And I'd say things like getting treadmills in, getting bicycles in, like extending the category assortment beyond fashion was something that I felt that I could push back on. Again, thinking I'm in a different position, I've got the authority, I've grown a business from X to this. I can just push back, and I can openly push back, and that'll be fine. COVID hit.
Can I ask you, just before you go through the story, is there learnings, like would you approach these scenarios differently now?
Yeah, I think, like it took me a long time to realise, like a couple of separation agreements to realise that knowing when someone wants you to make your decisions and knowing when someone wants you to execute.
Okay.
They're two very different approaches.
Yeah. And
I could keep my job if I just need to execute.
Yeah.
If they say, hey, get treadmills on, and I should go get treadmills on.
Yeah, okay.
And say, good news, guys, we got treadmills. But instead, I'm thinking, that's not really our customer. And I start like talking about what it is that I think. But no one cares what you think in this situation.
Let's get it done. And I think like with the new... And we'll get to your next point as well. I won't say much around the next point, but like when a new CEO or something comes on, they come into with fresh ideas and they want fresh executions like your treadmill. So that was the impact, the direct impact that she was looking to make, I guess, on the business.
And then if that wasn't hard enough, COVID hits and sport goes through the roof. and now we went from
selling treadmills and shit as well.
Well, no, we went from cancel all orders to you now need to get containers of like yoga mats in, and we quickly run out of stock. Like it's a scramble. It's the first time working from home. Fortunately, we had Slack and a few other things already set up, so it wasn't as tough as say other businesses, and with that, it was like, this is now the new normal. I think sport ended up at 35-40% of the business, where it sort of sat at 20% prior. And with that came a lot of eyes, a lot of pressure, and then a lot of questions around my strategic approach on how we maximize this opportunity.
Yeah, okay. So then, like, well, so what's the evolution of that?
The evolution of that is... I saw an email that I wasn't meant to be forwarded to that had a line saying, Rick is not on the bus, so please not keep him on. It was something it was a confidential thing that I can't talk about, but it was with another sporting retail partner that they were going to try and partner with, which I felt wasn't really aligned with the Iconic sort of customer. So again, pushing back, probably shouldn't. Just know when to execute. And so... that led to my second or third, depending on if you're keeping count, separation agreement, which involved me staying on for a period, having incentives for staying on for 3 months. So again, you're gone, but we'd like you to stay. And so, you know, I was being pulled into, I think it was like, I can't remember what it was called, Turbo 25 initiatives. And I'm like, I'm not even going to be here in 24. Why am I like being involved in this?
So, but what's your mindset here? Like, is your confidence taking a hit, or you just sort of it is, yeah?
Yeah. Every step, my confidence is taking a hit because I go in with imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
I then get the confidence I'm doing a good job, and then I get cut down.
Yeah.
And then I move to the next role. I go through the same cycle.
So when you're getting that sort of scar tissue, breaking your confidence down, do you think because it happened a couple of times, you kind of had the, I guess, mental strength to dust yourself off and go again, or what was?
Yeah, I didn't really know. Like it was a good enough separation that I had time.
Okay. So you've been pretty like you make your own luck, but pretty lucky in a way in that regard too. Yeah.
Timing's been amazing for all aspects of my career, and so I thought I had more time. It takes a long time to get a job, and this is post-COVID, so people don't know what they're doing,
especially at that level.
Yeah. So I had a couple of roles that came up because I exited the business and I was basically hanging out at home, and was like, just chilling. And there was a couple of lifelines thrown at me, but it was because everyone was pivoting into that e-commerce side, and I'd come from the Iconic, and there was a perception, right or wrong, that I was a bit of a digital nomad that knew what I was doing from sort of an e-com, like a head of e-com role.
Yeah.
And so that became really hard because, you know, my role at The Iconic was buying and planning functions reported in. And so it was a huge learning on the planning side, which I actually really enjoyed. But again, it's the strength of the team that you got. And so I was sort of 3 or 4 months in, I was starting to get pretty nervous. And I'm thinking, okay, this money's not going to last forever. But you always think when you have a separation or a redundancy that you can bank these dollars, but it's there for a reason. And I was getting really nervous. My confidence was shot, and then that's when I had a random call from the head of Adidas ANZ, Steve Castledine, called me, and I hadn't been at The Iconic for a couple of months, and he basically called me and he was really upset about something that was happening between Adidas and The Iconic, and was having a crack at me. And I just said, well, I don't work there anymore. And he just said, well, what is it you're doing? I said, I'm not doing anything. I'm in the market. And timing just works in weird ways. He said, hey, there's a new role that's coming out in this market, and I think you'd be perfect for it. Like, let's talk. And I just thought, okay,
once again, to give you a wrap, that's the relationship side of it, right? You didn't have a relationship with the general manager of Adidas. One, he's not calling you for no reason.
Yeah.
And two, like that, he doesn't just flip the switch and go, oh, well, I've got an opportunity with the digital side of our business. But yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, so he explains the role, and it's a director of digital. And immediately my stomach sinks, and I'm like, here we are again. Like, he thinks I know more about digital. And I look at the job description that's come through, and it's come through from Global because it hadn't existed in Australia yet. And I'm like, this isn't, like, I can cover 50% of this role, but the other 50% I can't. And I need a job, but also he's hiring me on my reputation that he has of me, and that mindset he has of me. So I, again, come clean. And I just say, hey, I don't think I meet the full requirements of this role, and there's a bit of a learning curve that I would have to overcome to be able to do this job effectively. And he just turned around and said, look, I'm sure that you'll be able to build the team, and I just want you on our side, which was a huge, similar to Patrick Schmidt saying you're part of our team. Yeah, is another.
Before we sort of touch on that part, because then we obviously move into what you're sort of doing now. What what advice would you, because that's a very like stereotypical corporate career, right, you've had. Like it's kind of like something you'd watch in a movie, like in America, and like someone doing like working corporate, maybe not footwear, but like in corporate jobs. What advice would you give someone sort of building their corporate career, and even as close to, like, probably overarchingly, what advice would you give in terms of building and wanting to reach sort of a senior level, but then also like in terms of like goal setting and different things and how to navigate your career, what sort of advice would you give around that?
I'd say that if people are willing to back you, then let them back you, because you're going to be your own biggest critic. And that's where I think everyone gets imposter syndrome. It's thrown around pretty loosely. I'd say that's one. Understanding that being the best person at the job at your level isn't enough to move to the next level. It's understanding what the needs of the next level are looking for, whether or not that's leadership or whatever. And a lot of that's just volunteering for everything. Like when I go back to starting my career late, I just put my hand up for everything. If you want me on the social committee, I'll be on the social committee. You want me, organising whatever it is, you throw your hand up. And you don't always get rewarded for it. I've been fortunate that I have, but there is sort of a reading of the room, understanding what the needs and the priorities are of people that are above you, and just backing yourself is a huge one. Like, I've felt that I've been underprepared or not ready to move to the next level, but if you work hard enough, you'll play catch up. And if not, you'll know pretty quick and just move on before it.
Separation agreement.
Yeah. That might not be said. That might be a full firing on that one. But I say that. I think for me, when I look back on my own, it's I never really, like, outside of Adidas, like not even Adidas, I've all the jobs I've had since I've left the UK have been offered to me. Yeah. Like, the ones that I've applied for, I never got. I made it to the.
I'm the same, actually, in a way, yeah.
To the 5th round of Amazon I made. I did not want that job because that's hardcore. Like, the interview process alone is enough to turn you off. And so I didn't get it, thankfully, because I'm not, how would you deal with this? I'd call someone. That's not the answer to give Amazon. So for me, it was, I was always happy in my role. And it was only when things went south or someone else offered me another role that I sort of jumped ship. And each time I didn't back myself, but when I look back, I probably should have.
Yeah, okay. So like obviously we mentioned that the key part probably of your career and is that like relationship building and building out a network and building your personal brand in that way. Mm-hmm. Was that an intentional thing, or just something you think that because obviously if you navigate back to like your childhood, changing schools, making friends, all that sort of stuff, it just came naturally?
I think so. I think it came naturally. I think that I'm like, speaking about myself now, if I'm close with someone, like I'll have the floor. You won't stop me talking.
Yeah.
But if I don't know you, then I'm going to get you speaking more than myself. So I think I'm very good at getting other people to speak, and I think that's why I was successful at Rebel. Like when I'm sitting there and negotiating, or when I'm at the Iconic or the Athlete's Foot, if you just shut up, whoever's on the other side trying to sell you something will tell you everything that they've got. And so I would tell this to my team, just sit comfortably in the silences and just let them speak. So, but as far as the relationship building side, I've always just sort of felt, I've probably been too honest. I'd say Jeff Webster from the Athlete's Foot used to say, stop falling on your sword in front of the franchise group. Like you don't have to tell them everything that's gone wrong in your decision-making process. But that does offer the trust. I think I like to be as transparent as possible. And that's helped build the relationships. If I've said I'm going to do something, I'd like to think that I've followed through in every area. There'd be some brands that would say no, but that have probably been on the fringe, that have been on the receiving end of some tough decisions. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Back to your corporate career. So you spent how many years at Adidas did you have?
I had 3 years, and 1 year in, I think that was when the global CEO changed and Bjorn comes in, and that's when I started to feel a bit like things are going to change, because he came in, and I think he's a great like sort of global leader for the brand, and everything was around sales, and my digital role was involved around external parties, which meant that I couldn't do the job. I had to influence others in doing the job, and we had some good results. But if you're dealing with Foot Locker, everything happens overseas. You're dealing with JD, it happens overseas. Rebel, they're a big beast, so it was hard to show progress. So I made the decision to do my MBA, and I went to Monash Uni and was doing that part-time. I don't know how it works, but I started doing that. I was offered from Adidas to sort of part contribute to that, but I sort of felt that the role was DPC, Digital Partner Commerce. I just felt that role may not exist by the time I'd finished, and I didn't want to have to untangle that web after the fact. So I felt that I'd worked for a lot of the retailers I wanted to work for, and I was starting to struggle to see where I wanted to work next. I didn't want to go to Amazon, and that was the natural one that I hadn't. And
can I, just before we get to that, can you touch a little bit on the MBA? So talk us through what advice you give someone wanting to do it, and then also like talk us through the challenges of it.
So it's hard. I spoke to multiple people about it because I was nervous, and I'd say out of 10 people, 5 people say do it. The other 5 say don't bother doing it. You got enough experience.
Okay. Were you like overarchingly thinking I want to move into like more senior levels, like in like senior director and CEO sort of roles?
Yeah, I think I moved, like my biggest move was a buying role from Rebel into the merchandise role in the Athlete's Foot. And I felt I sort of probably stayed at that level for a long time. And that next level up was going to be really big. And so I felt that I needed that. It was also something that sort of haunted me when I was a teenager. I left high school. I didn't go to uni. I was going to do a trade. Yeah. I failed at that. And I'm just thinking, I always felt that I was going to go back to uni. I used to tell people at the pub I'd go back to uni. Yeah. and so I just decided to do it because, you know, the Adidas role was great, but we had a bit of flexibility. The university was near the office in Mulgrave, so it's just sort of worked out. And you know, I had a lot of time on my hands, so I was playing golf. That's when I started sort of playing golf down at Woodlands, and I really enjoyed the learning aspect of it. And so my advice would be to do it, but don't expect you're going to get an outcome from it. An MBA doesn't guarantee a role, same as what I'm saying before. But what it does do is upskills you on what's going on. I learned a lot about sustainability, which was really great when we were at the Iconic, and I learned a lot about marketing, which now I'm using in Power Golf now. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
but it's not going to necessarily open up roles.
You're not going to be a CEO of Macca's tomorrow.
No.
I suppose then once again, through relationships and the network that you'd built, the opportunity comes up with Power Golf. Talk us through that.
Yeah, so Mick Elliott, Les Elias, so Les, who I replaced, he went into business with Mick Elliott, owned 5 stores within Sydney at Athlete's Foot. But I remained social with those guys for the whole time since I left. So we see each other multiple times a year, have a drink, you do all sorts. Like it was great. So that relationship was always there. And they were looking at other businesses to diversify their portfolio and risk. And Power Golf came up. And then when they saw where the business was at, they felt that they needed a third person to come in and run the different side of it. They'd gone through franchising, but this had a big digital arm. Yep. And they asked if I'd be interested. And
there you go. And then but there's obviously a number of conversations that go into that. Like you're going from strictly working in the corporate world for a salary your whole life to now into business ownership. It's a massive change. I don't know. What's the other side like?
Yeah, it's a huge change. It's definitely not decisions by committee as such. There's 3 of us, and it took a year of due diligence. So when we first started talking, I did a whole other year with Adidas, and the due diligence took a lot of time because the data wasn't great, and that sort of led to our challenges when we first took over the business. It was dated systems, like really convoluted sort of back end with online and how it all connects, and that was really where we spent the first 12 months. And I got into the business and straight away realized that I don't have the skill set that these guys thought I had. So again, I'm not the digital guru that you thought. I know how to execute, but I need someone to execute for me.
Okay.
And that's when we made our first hire, which was Ben Lopez from The Iconic. And he was on paternity leave at the time. And so he came in and just sort of spent a week with us as a contractor. And I said to the boys, we need to hire him. And this is a big hire because he was head of onboarding everyone in Marketplace from The Iconic. So he dealt with like hundreds of brands, knew the back-end systems. And I just felt we can't succeed without him. And we're going to have to hire... We have to hire him, 1, but 2, he's on paternity. So this is a hard sell. We're going to hire him, but he's not going to start, but we're going to pay him.
Far out.
So, and Ben, he works anyway.
Yeah.
And it didn't take long for the guys to realise that this was the right hire. And I'd say, will always remain our most important hire to get us to where we are now.
Yeah, okay. There you go. And I think, and just to touch on my question a little bit there as well, I think we had a conversation a while ago, and I just remember you sort of saying it's interesting going from that salary your whole career in the corporate world, then to working with guys who have worked for, like, they've owned a business for so long. It got to like a position where it was whatever tax time, whatever it came to be, and there was like a little bit of profit in the business, and you were like, and the boys were like, "Oh, happy days! How much are we taking?" And you were like, "No, we're getting the floors done." So it's just that a little bit. You've like gone from that mentality of like, "This is my salary. This is how much money I have." They were like, "Okay, we get not bonuses, well, whatever however it sort of worked." But does that mindset, like, did that take a little bit of getting used to as well? Or is it just interesting the different ways to think about it?
It's weird. I think that I thought that there's going to be a lot more money in early doors.
Okay.
But I'm used to working to a salary, and pretty quickly once we started bringing on Ben Lopez and we start like making a lot of changes in systems and what's required to run digital and marketing with agencies and all of that. It's not going to be a lot of money coming out of the business for some time, and so I'm okay with that because I'm used to living on a salary. Those boys are probably going to need something a bit more based on sort of their lifestyle. So for me, it's actually the salary side's fine. Yeah. But the decisions that you make and you think, okay, we're going to have to invest now, and in 6 months it's going to pay off. You say it, you feel confident, but you might wake up at 3 a.m. and think like, oh shit, is this going to happen in 5 months? And so fortunately, things are going well. So
awesome. All right, so now you've grown the business to 2 locations now. Initially, it was only one, the one in Alexandria, and you got one in Canberra now.
Yep.
Yeah. How's that sort of going?
It's going well. So Alexandria is a beast. It's been around for 18 years. We take it over. very much a discount model. And so the boys coming from, sorry, the boys coming from the athlete's foot side wanted to sort of premiumize it. And that takes time, and it's taken a lot of time. Like I remember you actually coming into Power Golf, and I think in my first or second week.
It was one of the early
places,
days, yeah.
It was a bit of a dump in the back end. And
yeah.
It was just messy. I think I got conjunctivitis twice just cleaning it. So we made a decision that we wanted to expand, and rather than opening multiple locations within Sydney, because we've got such a big flagship in Alexandria, let's look to other cities. And so ACT was sort of the next one that we sort of looked at. We saw it as a pretty strong market, especially for sport and performance. Like cycle brands go really well. You got trail running, like the Athlete's Foot stores were always strong. Yeah. Rebels always strong. So we saw, and it's 3 hours away. So it's tough, but it's not doable. Yeah. And so Canberra's been up for about 6 months. It's going well. It's a very different market. It's a very different way of doing business. Like they work differently out there. And
whereabouts in Canberra is it?
It's in Fishwick.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Do you spend much time there?
Not a lot, but I'm spending more recently, as that business is starting to
fixing all Mick's mistakes.
Someone's got it.
Yeah, shout out Mick.
And we're looking to expand to sort of team up with an existing sort of driving range, like performance facility where we come in and potentially do something with those guys. So the expansion's coming, and our online business is going really well. So that's sort of listed as a location within our sort of structure.
Yeah, cool. That's unreal. I think obviously the wealth of experience you've sort of come across in your time, but you can really sort of see a new sort of spin that you guys are putting on the golf industry. Like I haven't had much to do with like even the previous owner as a Power Golf or whatever like that, but my understanding was it was a very old school mentality. As you said, it was discount. It was there was a lot of that kind of stigma around it. What are probably like mid and long term goals with Power Golf? Is it going national?
So there's certain markets that we'll stay out of because you don't want to sort of poke the bear.
Yeah.
So I'd say Perth and Melbourne, we're just going to admire what they do from afar.
Okay.
But we wouldn't rule out, say, Adelaide, sort of Brisbane.
Yeah.
It's been a learning. I think we've got the support of the brands. Like I've gone in with that iconic mentality, and any brand that comes in, I present to them. And I've had multiple times, brands say to me, I've never been presented to like that before. Like we're sort of bringing them in the tent. We're sort of showing them what we want to do from a long-term point of view, which is, we wanted to sort of maintain the value of the retail price and try and improve the experience.
Yeah.
And
which is very much aligned with where your business partner's experience is with TAF as well, right? It's that service, it's the experience. It's not a discount retailer, essentially. But yeah, sorry.
And it's tough because there's no segmentation in golf. So by doing that, you don't really do yourself any favors.
Will it evolve or not?
Remains to be seen. So we had like brands say like, good luck trying to do that model, but we're nearly 2 years in and that's working. And the way that we're doing, we're not just trying to premiumize it by saying, hey, this product is more valuable than it is, and do this. We're trying to sort of support growing the game. And that's where, from my side, really leaning into what I learned through the MBA, the Iconic, because the Iconic was heavily in marketing as well, sort of creating content is sort of where I've sort of started to really lean in with Power Golf.
Here we are.
Yeah, here we are. And, our first ambassador, who was a friend of Mick, Dan Christian, sort of really threw us a lifeline as far as coming on board and giving us someone to sort of partner with on that side. But his own career with cricket and the growing, popularity of cricket in the US led him pretty quickly having to go over to the US and do these engagements, which is great for him. So I sort of pivoted and we got El Matula to come in, and I was filming her journey to getting a handicap. And that journey, sort of creating YouTube episodic sort of type content, led to me meeting one of your mates, Justin Horrow.
Yeah.
Well, we went on SEN because we're a sponsor of the Joel and Fletch show, and Justin stepped in for Joel. And I had a 5-minute conversation with him about what we were trying to do with El, and he said, I love it. Like, let's chat. And he said, can you come and meet me? And I said, sure. And he actually said, I'm going to be at Bonnie Doon. I said, cool, that's my club. I'll go down and meet you. And he goes, I've got a few mates that I'm playing with. And turns out he's playing with Dan Christian and yourself.
Yeah, I walked in. I'm like, oh, Berkey, what's going on? And you're like, you're talking to Hollis. And I was like, oh, wait, you're actually having a meeting. I was like, what? I was like,
we had a meeting in front of you guys while you got beers in hand. So,
Dan Christian was standing up because he didn't make enough birdies that day as well.
That's true. It's unlike it.
Yeah, I know. Very unlike it.
So, so we've done things and that's opened up some doors. And we've, like this week, got Chad Townsend on board and Olin Teckers. So Olin Teckers just does general content and all that. So we're sort of building really strong relationships in that media space. And I'm learning as I go. Like, and we've got sort of a show, 9 Holes Deep, where I can't podcast. Like, happy to do this, but I was obviously nervous coming in. So we've put a spin on podcast by having guests on and have them play Mick in a 9-hole match play, and then we ask them the questions in that format. So we're on course, it's golf related, and it's authentic. Like, we're not going to go down this path, but we're seeing really good signs already, and the brand partners are really starting to jump on board with it. So Les, my business partner who manages a lot of the finance, like he'd like to see a bit more of that leaning into the top line, into the bottom line, but that'll come. And
for sure.
We're growing our presence, and I really think we're onto something here.
Absolutely. And I think like YouTube golf, for example, like look at the beast that is in the States at the moment. And like every person you play golf with is like, oh, watch Grant Horvat do this or whatever on the weekend. And like that 9 Holes Deep show you've created is awesome. I'm loving watching the episode so far. I'm loving watching Mick get touched up as well.
Yeah, he's 0-2.
Yeah, 0-2.
You're going to have to come on and ensure he's 0-3.
Yeah, we'll see how we go. Not the way I played today. Mate, because this, by the way, I've absolutely loved this because this is my world that I work in as well. So I've got so much out of this. This has been absolutely unreal. Purely because it's Masters Week, can I have your favourite ever Masters moment?
Yeah.
And then I want a prediction. Who's
okay, cool. Can I have two? Because I've got two.
Go for it.
Okay, so the first one is I actually went to the Masters in 2013. So it was with Texas Peak with the Brooks guys.
Yeah.
It wasn't Raj. It was Bruce Fitch. And so we went over, which was amazing. But it was the year that Bubba Watson had that miracle shot to win.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so we went day 1 and 2. So I was there day 1 and 2 and just like had no idea, right? Like how good it was. And we spent day 3 and 4 watching it in a pub in Texas. We went down to Texas and that happened. So for me, that whole seeing Bubba Watson win and seeing him the days before was amazing. And then the other one is just Adam Scott winning the year after, because I just watched that on YouTube a lot. Like
that was 2013.
That was 2013.
That was 2013 because I was in
2012. Might have been.
The only reason I know that is I was in Harrogate when it
there
happened.
You go. Yeah. So Bubba won the year before, so it might have been 2012.
Yeah.
But yeah, anytime I go away on golf weekends and all that sort of stuff with the guys, like generally that gets put on in the background. And Angel Cabrera, who we beat at the end, like just that whole sort of interaction that they had in the rain, like going into the back 9.
Yeah.
And I just love that it's on YouTube and I can watch it anytime I want.
So good.
Yeah. So for me, that's those two.
So good. I think for me, like the iconic Tiger, like the Nike roll into the hole, like that's probably just, if I had to call out a moment, like just that shot is the most ridiculous golf shot in history. Like it's absolutely absurd. And like you hear people like talk about if I started on the green and I played the Masters from like say the furthest spot on the green, I would make the cut.
Yeah.
So like that's how ridiculous those greens are, and for him to hit that shot with that confidence, with the whole world watching, with probably like a couple thousand on the hole, and then like millions watching knowing like on TV and whatever. Like you look at like this isn't even live. We're sitting here and you sort of get a little bit nervous. Imagine playing golf in front of that. Like it's absolutely absurd. Like I think just the highest pressure moment it could possibly be in, and to pull that out is ridiculous. I think the reason that isn't on my list is because I could see the relationship he had with Steve Williams, the caddy at the time. Yeah.
And I just felt I never had that with Monty, so I just felt jealous.
It's so good.
If Monty holds out, he's not looking at me.
It's so good. Recency bias, and because I watched this last couple of days, like Rory, just how clutch he was down the stretch as well last year. And then prediction.
So my prediction is Tommy Fleetwood.
Love it.
And
so you got a hole in one today?
Didn't actually see that, no. So my prediction is Tommy. I was actually talking to one of the guys today. I asked him what his prediction was, and he said Tommy Fleetwood. But I just keep thinking that he's got the game, and he's been really unlucky. And I would love to see him win. So from obviously any Aussie, I'd love to see Minwoo win and all that sort of stuff. But for me, my prediction is Tommy.
Yeah, cool. I'm going to say Brooks.
Okay.
Yeah, I think there was an interview during the week, and someone said to Brooks, I hope it was Brooks, because I could potentially get this wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was. And the reporter said he's 59 possible out here, and he goes, "Have you ever played out here?" And he goes, "No, I haven't been lucky enough to get an invitation." And he goes, "I can tell." It shows you how tough that golf course is, and yeah, I'd just love to see Brooks win it. Mate, 3 quick questions, and we'll get you out of here because we're very grateful for this. 16-year-old Rick walks through the door. What are you telling him?
Everything will be all right.
I
think I'm a warrior.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that's not warrior. That's a warrior. So I would just say everything's going to be all right. Like every step, I've just think that every step I just think things are going to be taken from me, but I always land. And I think because I think I'm so lucky is the reason why I just can't trust that it's going to be fine. But if I go back to 16-year-old me, I'll say, mate, give him a hug and say everything's going to be right.
Yeah, love it. What's your go-to cheat meal?
Ramen or cheese.
Or cheese?
I love cheese.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
just a thing of cheese.
Oh no.
Like a cheese board.
I could do a sack of Baby Bells easy on my own. No, it's a nightmare. And cheese doesn't necessarily agree with me. I sort of break out in a cold sweat if I have too much. But so I'd say cheese would be my cheat meal, and ramen. I just love ramen.
Yeah.
And the reason it's a cheat meal is if you have ramen, it sort of if I have it for lunch, I'm sort of cooked for the rest of the day.
Yeah, it's a heavy meal.
It's a heavy meal.
Mate, Vic, obviously owning a golf business, your dream golf foursome. Dead or alive? You can't say me. I'm carrying the bags.
No. And I listened to you. I listened to your podcast, so I was hoping this would come.
Yeah.
And I'm going to narrow it down to 4, but the first one would be Larry David, because I love Curb Your Enthusiasm, and the funniest parts are of him at the country club in LA Golf Club or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he's hilarious. I also think I can beat him, but I think he's off a lower handicap than me.
Yeah, okay.
I'm also the only bloke that's bought his own golf business that his handicap's gone up.
Got worse.
It's gotten worse.
Yeah, it's because Mick's always holding the bay. You can't hit balls.
Yeah, exactly. So I think my TrackMan handicap's 2, but my outside handicap's 14. So I think Mick says I'm scared of the wind and rain now. But so Larry David would be first. I'd say Dustin Martin. So I'm a big Richmond Tiger fan.
Yeah,
and
love it.
I'm a huge AFL fan, and not a lot of people know that he plays and he loves it. I don't know what his handicap is. He's as private in his golf as he is in his personal life. And
shout out Dusty, he loves it. So he might be a new ambassador for Power Golf.
Yeah, oh, mate, I love that. He just never does any media.
Yeah,
so
he'll reach out. He'll be watching.
So I'd say Dusty. So it'd be Larry David, Dusty, and mate, weirdly, when I was caddying at Wentworth and I had that day with Montgomery, I met Lee Westwood. And then I thought he was quite young at the time, and I really liked him as a person, and he gave me really good vibes. And then he did a match against Rick Shields, and he just tore strips off him. He just he's pretty good sledger, and I just thought, shit, I would crumble under that. Yeah. So I don't know why I'm putting myself through it, but I'd say Lee Westwood would be the third one.
Mate, love it.
Yeah.
Mate, as I said, super grateful for this. I've absolutely loved this and got so much out of it. Just as I said, this is my world. This is the corporate world that I actually work in. So, to go on this sort of journey was awesome. Very grateful for you sharing a lot of stuff that you probably hadn't shared too much in a public domain before. And that's Rick Burke, everybody. I'll share everything with Power Golf. Mate, thank you.
Thanks a lot, mate.